Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture with the rogues who create it every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Facebook.com/Rogue Matter Podcasts. Download this podcast immediately following the live stream on all major podcasting apps, or go to RogueWavePodcast.com. That's wave without an E. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Join the movement. Go Rogue. RogueMatter.com. I am your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my co-host extraordinaire, the Lord of the Radio. I think it's a record now. 3 weeks in a row. Lord of the Radio, Hassan Godwin. How you doing, sir? I caught you off guard. See? You were expecting Lord of the Live Stream or Lord of the... I don't know. Yeah, I got nothing else. Lord of Big Tech. Oh, Lord of Big Tech.
Lord of Big Tech.
I am making a rule right now, though. Nothing extraordinary is supposed to happen on days that we record our podcast. Mind you, the inauguration's next week, so we'll see if we actually air.
Yeah, that rule's already broken, dude.
We will.
I mean, I don't know what. Don't make rules. That's the rule.
That's the rule.
Learn from Metallica. We're never going to make a video. Learn from people. Never make declarations.
Never make declarations?
Yes.
I declare that everyone needs to be peaceful on Wednesdays.
Never make absolute statements. Just don't do it. Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
As always, we like to pride ourselves that we are a distraction from all that other stuff. We will not get into political discussions. We will not get into crazy stuff. We will only talk about the fun stuff out there and keep it as what is it? Kids in a candy store analogy as best as possible. So we will always try to be a distraction. That being said, some distractions are very, very loud and tough to navigate. But we are here. We got a lot of cool stuff going on. We've got Kevin Feige making some news, so we'll talk a little bit about that later on. He's doing some press the last couple days, so that's kind of exciting, giving us the future of the MCU. Our over-unders were very accurate already.
Does Kevin Feige know when we're going to get to go back to the movies? That's what I want to know.
Fauci thinks, and this is a irrelevant discussion. He thinks in the
You're
fall.
Quoting Fauci now. That's strange.
I know.
I'm
just saying.
That's about as political as I'll get. But
this is as political as we'll get here. I'm just saying he thinks he made news that said in the fall. He thinks the fall. So, we'll see.
Wow.
We'll discuss that later.
That's a while from now. That's a tremendous amount of time.
We're going to also welcome Mark Kaufmann, the creator of the new Rogue Matter graphic novel, Making Markum, which is pretty dope. I got to be honest. I got to read the first issue. It's out on Rogue Matter today. Let me just talk a little bit about Rogue Matter real quick. Everything that we do on Rogue Matter is free to consume. So there has been already a series of short stories called The Key to the City. Issue 5 just came out last Wednesday. Every Wednesday, something new is on RogueMatter.com, and you can read it for free. It's kind of cool. Every Wednesday, there's a new Rogue Wave podcast. Every Thursday on Twitch, there's a new Button Smash podcast. And then that podcast gets added to the site as well in the days after that. So there is just free new content, and Making Markum is the newest series to launch, and it is on the site today. So go check it out. And then we're going to welcome Mark Kaufmann on a little bit later, who created the series. It's kind of like a John Wick-esque, Punisher-esque kind of story, but kind of told from a different point of view. It's very rogue. It's very cool. Artwork is fantastic, and the first issue is pretty dope. So we're excited to have him on there. But I wanted to start with this. WandaVision's coming out, already getting very good reviews too, apparently, right? I, for one, in a thirst for new content, not new content, something to watch. I had flagged Ozark in my Netflix queue I think it's been in my queue for the last year to watch Ozark, and for some reason, on a whim, I'm working out. I'm on an exercise bike, and I got my phone. I'm like, what the hell? Let me watch Ozark. That was one of the best TV pilots I have ever seen. That first episode of Ozark. Let me give you a quick little rundown, Hassan, of all the things that happened in the first episode of Ozark.
Don't spoil it.
It's been out for it's in
Doesn't matter. Don't
year
spoil it. I
3.
haven't seen it. I have not seen
Are
it.
you going to watch it though?
Sure. If you don't spoil it.
All right, I will say this then. There is so much that happens in the first, I guess, 54 minutes long, that they literally could have made that an entire series based on just what was happening in the pilot to set up the storyline. They could have made that a whole season. It doesn't feel cramped. It doesn't feel rushed. It was executed so flawlessly, in my opinion,
flawlessly, wow.
that it was, I mean, maybe the first 5 minutes were a little slow, but everything else was like, oh, this is not what it, I didn't see this coming. I didn't, this guy, and she knew, and now he knows about, that guy, whoa.
Is it going to make me do that? Because I'll probably not watch it then.
Probably not you.
Yeah, if it's going to make me, I don't think I'm going to do it.
What was that? I feel like there's an old sketch cow. I forget, maybe it was the State or something. Yeah, it was like I think the State at MTV. They had one of those things like, like all the like the whole sketch was just them going crazy. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, it was the two guys. They were buying a rug in a furniture store, and they're like, "This rug is the greatest. I am making love to this rug right now." That was everything was like the salesperson was like, "Let me show you this clock." Whoa! This clock.
Yeah. So maybe
I would actually pay money to see you react in that kind of way.
Nah, dude. Nah.
Circling back from the tangent, the Ozark pilot was so good, like just so good. So good. I haven't watched the next episode, but that's because I haven't had time to.
Oh God. You always ruin
Tuesday. I watched it Tuesday. It's Wednesday.
Ruin your arguments,
Monday. I watched it Monday. It's Wednesday.
You always contradict your own arguments for everything. Like arguing with you is so easy because all I do is wait long enough. And you're gonna counter argue your argument.
I do. I counter argue it because I feel as if the next question in your mouth is, well, what about the rest of the season? And I'd be like, well, I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
You'll be like, but if it was so good, no, it was good, and I've
learned over the years, just wait.
He'll
do it himself,
and then I worked all day. Yeah, I was working on Time Trader for Rogue Matter yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to watch any TV. I haven't watched. Put it this way, I haven't watched any TV aside from sports since Ozark. So there is my my caveat to my own counter argument.
Okay.
So it got me thinking, like, what are the best TV pilots of all time? And we started talking off air. You had a few that you thought were like the best that you've ever seen.
Well, they're better than Ozark.
Well, you don't know.
You can't tell me that. I know they are. You know why?
I don't know.
I know. You know why I know? Because those episodes compelled me to watch the rest of the show.
Yeah.
So they have to be better than whatever the Ozarks was, because that just didn't, no matter how good it was, it didn't push you. I don't know. I've seen stuff. I think the first episode of Justified was amazing. And it got me hooked. And I was late to that. I didn't have FX.
Yeah.
So I was late to that. So I was able to like binge most of the first season.
Right.
When I first saw it. And that first episode compelled me to watch. And then I subsequently watched the entire show.
Yeah.
I stayed with it all the way to the end. So I don't know if I've seen too many amazing pilots, but I've seen pilots that are great enough to make me like a devotee of the show.
Yeah.
It's like if this whole show is like this,
right,
I'm definitely watching the rest of this.
The reason I say that, though, pilot episodes can be a disaster, and not actually accurately reflect the way the rest of the show is going to be. Like I actually called to mind Seinfeld, right? The first season of Seinfeld is terrible. Now I loved it because I was in 5th grade when it first came
what
out.
Seinfeld was called before it was Seinfeld?
Seinfeld Chronicles. We all know that.
Not everybody knows that. Not everybody knows that. What kind of nonsense is that? Trust me.
Everybody up here. knows it.
All the people, all the banana people in your head. Yeah, yes. Okay. I'm sure they know a lot of things.
Seinfeld, the first season was pretty bad, but I loved it because I was 5th grade and I, for some reason, wanted to be a stand-up comedian. Like that was when I discovered stand-up comedy, and I was like, wow, I want to be a stand-up comedian. Yes, that was my, when you're a kid, like you want to be like something different every year. No,
I just can't not see that.
What?
I can't
not see me. You could absolutely see me as a stand-up comedian. I wouldn't be a very good one. Well, that's not true. I'm pretty brilliant, so it's possible that I would be hilarious.
Ooh, it keeps getting worse. Okay. But, anyway,
but I was big into the show because they would actually, it was a unique show. It never did this before. It was a sitcom, plus it had his stand-up, and his stand-up was always brilliant, right? That was always the best part of the early shows, was his stand-up. And so that's why it's amazing. It was a summer cast off of all things. The first 4 episodes, that was a summer cast off. And I remember that summer I stayed a week at my grandma's. My sister and I stayed with my grandma for a week for like a fun vacation. Like, because when you're 10 years old, like what, that's your vacation, right? Like, unless you go with your family, you go stay somewhere else, maybe a friend's house or grandma's house. And that's what I did. And I remember like tuning into this because of the stand-up comedy stuff, not thinking the rest of the show is bad. But then years later, you end up watching the pilot and you're like, how the hell did this get renewed? Like, how did they get into a season 2? Which even season 2 wasn't great, but I kept watching.
So are we talking about best pilots or worst pilots now?
Well, I'm talking about best pilots, but my point being, though, is that a pilot episode is not easy to do, to a point where, like you mentioned Game of Thrones to me off air as being one of the best pilots you've seen. Or one of the favorites that you have.
Yeah, but I think honestly, if I rethink it, it's one of the first. It's one of the best first seasons I've seen.
Okay.
I don't remember I think the impact of the pilot was like, that was interesting. I'll watch next week. It wasn't like, oh my God, this is going to be one of the greatest shows on the planet, and I'm going to keep watching it. That wasn't my reaction to it at all. I would say it has to be first season. It's one of the best first seasons I've ever seen. It compelled me to start reading those books.
Yeah.
And then I was finished with all those books by the time. Well, I was finished with the first 4 books by the time season 2 came out. I was one of the book devotees by the time season 2 came out. That's not really what you're talking about. So
it is and it isn't. I mean, we're just it's just kind of with WandaVision coming out.
I think the first episode of Rome was still is an amazing first a pilot episode. You can't really call it a pilot episode because it was on HBO, so it's just really a first episode. Because basically, if people don't understand, like most of the young people won't understand, a pilot is usually a show that comes out maybe 6 months to a year before the season, before the first season comes out. It's just a test. They put it out. They may make a little bit a bit of publicity about it.
They may order the series. The pilot is there to make sure that that executives will order the series. So whether
and sometimes they'll show the pilot, and sometimes they won't. And then a lot of times, by the time we see the first episode, it's the pilot, but it's been refilmed 3 times, because the first pilot of Game of Thrones isn't the pilot. It doesn't. The actress who played Daenerys was changed. A number of actors were changed, as a matter of fact. So it is what it is. That's why Game of Thrones doesn't really qualify, but that's also why HBO doesn't really qualify, because they don't really show pilots.
Right.
So like you're seeing the best first episodes of a show. I did tell you, and I will repeat it here, that I thought that Boardwalk Empire was, and I have a hard time saying Boardwalk Empire. I can't get those two. I can't get those two out. But I think that was a fantastic pilot. I still go back to that. I think up to season 3, it was one of the greatest shows I've ever seen, and then it got really weird.
Did you ever see? Because this was my king of all pilots before.
King of all pilots.
Before Ozark has now entered in the conversation.
Oh my God! Like this Ozark's not going to hold up.
No, it's obviously
it's not going to hold. Stop overselling it. It's not going to hold up.
That's your homework assignment. I want you to watch Ozark and come back.
I'm not going to watch it because I'm afraid of having seizures like you just did. I'm afraid of that. My health, I'm trying to look out for my health. I'm making a concerted effort about it, and
They don't make they're gonna have to start making an Ozark protocol, like there's
yeah,
COVID protocols.
you just put
Now
me
there's
off
Ozark.
that because you ooh, that's
Like
I don't want
that was
that.
like that Simpsons episode where they have like the flashy seizure anime episode. They literally call the show flashy
Caesar. That's not nice.
I'll get the actual
that's not funny.
I'll get the actual title for it. But no, did you ever watch Californication?
Yes, I did.
One of the best. That was my favorite pilot episode. I thought
I don't even remember the pilot of that.
It was one of those things where it was so well executed. The premise was well executed, but also it had so much that I'll call it action. I can't, it's not like an action show, but it had so much going on in it that it like immediately I was like, I felt like I had watched a 48-minute movie. Do you know what I mean? And that was one of those pilot episodes to me that was like
I've seen a couple like that. I can't think of them now, unfortunately. But I've seen a couple of, like, I think the first episode of The Expanse was like, wow, all right, I'm gonna watch this show. This looks great.
Yeah.
Mostly because it's a science fiction show, but all the money was on the screen.
Right.
Like you could see, like, oh, this looks exceptional.
Yeah.
A little obscure show that nobody knows from the BBC was The Musketeers. I'm a big fan of the book, The Three Musketeers. Okay. So the pilot of that, I've actually gone back to see that a number of times because it's an excellent first episode. Yeah. But it's like a swashbuckling thing with guys from France with swords. So a lot of people are not going to, like, if I told you got to watch that, you're not going to.
No.
So yeah.
You also pride yourself on being a counter mainstream kind of guy. You like finding things that other people are not into.
You know what? To be honestly, I don't pride myself on it. I just find that I am. Like, I like this. I don't like that. Like, I'm not gonna watch Gossip Girl. I'm not gonna watch. I didn't really watch Bridgerton. I wasn't interested in Bridgerton, even though that's trending and that's still #1 on Netflix.
Which one is?
Since Christmas, Bridgerton. I'm not gonna. There's some things I'm not gonna watch.
Yeah.
And then you don't either. You didn't jump to it. You didn't slave yourself out to the fashion. So it is what it is. So
I get a sense of pride from you, though. There's an air of pride.
Look, man,
when you're like,
I like that the things I like. I like that you have that channel. You have the BBC. Don't act like that's a hoity channel. It's the only broadcasting system in Britain. It's like it's not like it's an obscure. The entire country, the entire nation of Britain watches. Hey, man, they do good. They do the good writing.
Here's a good one.
They invented the language, so they know how to use it correctly. So there's a number of things like that. But I'm just saying, in general, I just find I pride myself on finding things I really like that I end up liking 10, 15 years later.
Right.
Like this was genuinely good because the 15-year-older me still likes it. After all I've been through. So that's kind of where my pride is. I'm not gonna lie and say I'm not. I'm not arrogant snob about some things. I'm not gonna lie. I am.
So I threw this one out. I threw this out on social
every
media.
now and then Avatar gets in there. Like right. I really like Avatar. Sometimes I do like the grand spectacles. Right. I liked Titanic.
Well, I mean, it was wonderful, and she let him die.
It's still the greatest movie of all time, the highest grossing movie of all time.
So I threw this out on social media, and a couple came back that I thought were interesting because we've talked about them also. Lost was an answer for many people, and you did not like the Lost. Here's the thing about, again, it's a pilot episode, not a first season, right? From a pilot episode, dropping the mystery boxes, whether you have complaints about the execution of said mystery boxes, or if said creator tends to rely on mystery boxes to tell stories, in a pilot episode, dropping a mystery box is kind of a good thing, right? Wouldn't you say?
I would say so. I wouldn't argue with that. I wouldn't argue.
Oh, you wouldn't
argue.
Okay.
I would say yes, but I didn't really dig the pilot of Lost, regardless of the mystery box. That wasn't the reason I disliked it, but that didn't make me like it either.
Right. Randy Weingart, who is he worked for Nielsen for 20 years.
I was actually shamed into liking Lost because everybody at the office liked it, so it's like everyone's talking about this damn show. I got to see it,
Yeah.
And that was back in the day where you felt peer pressure. The older you get,
because you actually were around other human beings.
Yeah, well,
that was.
I mean, as I get older, I don't.
Someone?
Yeah,
can you zoom?
can.
Is there Zoom shaming?
Yeah, there's plenty of Zoom
Interesting.
shaming.
Randy was in.
Listen to Sentimentals. There's plenty of Zoom shaming.
No,
but
you can get that on all major podcasting apps.
Yes, you can wherever you get podcasts from. Sentimentals.
Suddenly you don't mind. Anyway. You don't mind the plugging when it's plugging stuff that you do.
I don't ever stop you from plugging. I just make fun of you for doing it. So you're free to make fun of me.
Randy was an old college roommate of mine, and he responded, "My job included watching pilots for all broadcast networks for over, or has included, I guess he's still with Nielsen, for over 20 years. The pilot that changed TV after 2000, he said Twin Peaks did that before that, was Lost. That second, my team and I saw the Lost pilot. We knew we had a game changer and ratings juggernaut, and it was also great television. Personally, the pilot for the, and he also wrote, personally, the pilot for the underrated Hannibal was also mesmerizing. Hannibal I never really saw, so I can't count.
Hannibal that's a good pilot. That was a really good pilot.
The other one that oh, sorry, go ahead.
Nah, anything I was going to say after that was going to be somewhat negative, so never mind.
Okay.
But it was a good pilot. It's very, very, very good pilot.
The other one that kind of came up was Walking Dead. Jeff Buterman, fan of the show, friend of the show, Walking Dead.
I remember that pilot. I do remember the Walking Dead pilot.
Melissa Wong Becker, also friend of the show. Jeff Buterman. The pilot is so cringy now. Watching the part when Morgan is hammering boards over the windows. It's that is a solid pilot, right? I mean, and also in the realm of what we do, right? In terms of comic book movies.
See, this is the thing, though. Before you go on, this is the situation. Anything I would tell you, this was a great pilot. 10 years later, I wouldn't be like, it's cringe now, but back in the day, it was great. I mean, that's why I kind of misunderstood the assignment because I'm like, things that were a great pilot that turned out to be great, And the stuff I say is like, it's still great. I could put those on now and be like, man, this was great. If only the show stayed like this, or if only this show was still on.
I don't think she used cringy in that fan. I think she meant like creepy. Like it is so creepy now. Maybe.
Well, she's using the wrong term.
Oh, maybe maybe you're right. Means. Oh, wait, maybe you're right. Maybe she's saying cringy in a negative way. Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, because I mean, if you know the show, right, and then you watch the meager way that they fortified themselves against the Walking Dead, the walkers, then maybe that's cringy. Who knows? She's gonna have to clarify that.
That's what I'm saying. We're gonna call out Melissa Wong Becker. I don't know if she meant a negative or positive, but I know a lot of people said Walking Dead was a great pilot, and I do agree with that. I
did enjoy the Walking Dead pilot. That did compel me to keep watching the show at the time,
and it was pretty faithful, right? It was a pretty faithful adaptation.
I had never read the comic. That was
I went back and read the comic afterwards, and it was actually pretty faithful to it. So cheers to that.
But that's Frank Darabont. Darabont, first season. If it wasn't for Darabont's first season, there would be no Walking Dead show, I think.
Other notables before we go to break: Battlestar Galactica, great pilot. I don't know, yes or no?
I didn't like it.
Okay,
I was not, but. There's a reason. There's a bias in that. I was a fan of the original show, and I, at the time, was not a fan of reimagined. I was very gatekeeper-ish. Like don't come to me with this, this brand new, wash, this contemporary wash over like my classics.
Yeah.
So I mean, since then, I have not liked Battlestar Galactica for its own merits, but at the time, I didn't like it. Because of being a gatekeeper. So okay, what's next?
Firefly.
Oh man,
I never got the love of Firefly. I like Joss Whedon a lot, but I didn't. Firefly just was one of those like, it just felt underwhelming to me.
I would agree.
I liked the movie. The movie I thought was better than the actual show.
My reaction to the movie of Serenity.
Yeah.
Was when I came out of that, I was talking to a friend of mine. I said, I was talking about Joss Whedon, who I am notoriously not a fan of.
Right.
I mean, I'm not even secretive about that.
Right.
And my attitude was like, he knows the words, but he doesn't know the music. That's how I felt about it. I was not enamored with it.
I like
whatsoever.
that. Very dynamic.
I have since
analogy.
changed my perspective on Joss Whedon, especially after Avengers, which he did. I think the first Avengers he did a fantastic job on.
Yeah.
And then I saw the second Avengers, and then I went right back to my Joss Whedon situation. But okay, so.
And then lastly,
so Firefly. What was the other one?
West Wing came up a lot.
I've never seen West Wing. So,
I know.
But now that you made me think about it, Westworld had a great first episode.
Oh yes. Woo! Talk about not a measure of what was to come. Now, first season Westworld, amazing.
First season's really great. I actually own the first season, and then I dropped way off.
It's worth it. Do you know what's really funny? Before we go to break, I still have the last episode of season 3 sitting on my DVR because I just refuse to watch it. But I refuse to delete it. I keep it there as like an emergency
as a reminder.
It's a reminder of how awful the show is now, and also it's an emergency break glass in case I need to see something. And I don't know.
And what's funny is season 3 is an improvement on season 2. But it's just too little, too late.
But an awful show. All right, what do you guys think? Give us your favorite TV pilots of all time. Praise for WandaVision. I'm pretty excited. We'll dive deep into that next week a little bit. But people are really saying great things, and we hope that it will be as great as Ozark, which is phenomenal. Hassan's going to go home this weekend, and he's going to watch it. And we're going to talk about it next week. Maybe not.
Okay, that sounds good. You know what? And then I almost guarantee if I watch it and I enjoy that pilot, by next week I'll have seen the whole show.
Yeah.
And you still will only have seen episode 1.
Probably episode 2. I will give myself that I can get done with at least one more episode of Ozark before next week's show. All right. When we come back, we do our Rogue Rage. Kevin Feige making the rounds. The future of the MCU coming into clarity when we come back.
Welcome to Button Stash, the show about the best mustaches in gaming.
Casey, it's Button Smash. It's the new gaming podcast from the Rogue Matter Network. I don't know where you got mustaches from.
Well, I'm not shaving. But we will talk about gaming news, reviews, inside scoops, and retrospectives.
Join us live on twitch.tv/WeAreRogueMatter on Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, or download our episodes wherever you listen to your podcast.
But please, Casey, shave.
Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We're going to get into our Rogue Rage. We do this every week, all the rage in the pop culture world. And Mr. MCU, Kevin Feige, bringing that back into the news a little bit here, talking R-rated Deadpool and more, talking WandaVision, Black Panther. Feige sat down with Deadline and delivered some news about WandaVision, Black Panther, and even the Marvel Netflix verse, which has been sent off into limbo. He's not worried, he said, about the switch to the small screen, diluting the impact of the big screen films. It happens to star 2 Avengers, talking about WandaVision, and has the Marvel logo, but it's a wholly unique experience. He talks about Monica Rambeau, who will appear in WandaVision and who will also tie directly into Doctor Strange 2. He is saying
and then probably eventually Captain Marvel somewhere along the line, right?
Yeah,
because she was one of the Captain Marvels.
Yep. The question they actually asked was, will it be a ramp for the X-Men universe in the MCU? And he kind of pursed his lips a little bit. He said, in hindsight, in 5 years, when we're talking about everything that's happened, everything can be a ramp to everything, he said.
He's really good at that. He's really good at that.
You know, some people.
You know, he's also good at doing that, and have you not like think that he's an idiot or some kind of, you know, that he doesn't know.
Yeah,
like he's one of these guys who's managed. He's kind of like George Lucas in the sense that whenever he talks, you always think there's something happening, like there's some kind of plan happening, as opposed to when some other people speak and you're like, this guy's just an exec. He doesn't really know what's going on.
Right. And there's an art to it. And he does it. He does the dance.
He comes off like a mastermind as opposed to like a stoolie.
Exactly. Exactly. He does talk Black Panther. He says Ryan Coogler is working very hard right now with all the respect and love and genius that he has, which gives us great solace. So it was always about furthering the mythology and the inspiration of Wakanda. He's in a no-win situation. There's
a big debate about that, about whether they should recast Chadwick Boseman or not. And a lot of people are kind of coming out on they should recast him so that everybody can have the iconic Black Panther character.
Yeah.
I think
you can do both, right? I think you can have his sister take on the mantle of Black Panther because she did it in the comics, so it's not unheard of, but then recast him by the time the next movie, the third movie, comes out. I think at that point you need
and he doesn't have to be T'Challa. He could be someone else.
Yeah.
Like you can say that Chadwick Boseman will always be Black Panther.
Yeah.
But you have another Black Panther,
You could do that, but then I think T'Challa should be recast down the line somewhere. I think there's shock and there is sadness, and it's just but it's a situation I don't think anyone's going to look at and say you're being disrespectful to anyone if they did, because you do understand that
it depends on who they get. It's
that's true too.
When you replace the lead singer of the band, it always depends on what kind of music you make with the new lead singer,
That's true too.
Because sometimes you'll get a Sammy Hagar, and then sometimes you'll get a Gary Sharon, and your mileage will vary. So, there is that.
Yeah, it's definitely rock hard place them, but I think a temporary respite is just pass it on to the sister, move on. And then then you're gonna get the sexist types who don't want to see the Black Panther male, subjugated by. I mean, you're not gonna be able to win either way. It would have been better for everyone if Chadwick Boseman had been decent and not died. If he had just not done that to us, yeah. Well, everybody knows I'm being sarcastic. It was devastating. It was to me especially. It was devastating. Yeah.
But there's nothing you can do. Like, it's more important. It's more, his health is more important than how we recast him.
Of course.
I think his legacy but I don't think his legacy is in jeopardy. That's a concern I don't think we have to worry about. I think he's always going to hold a high position of honor and respect in that.
The strategy of waiting for a third movie to recast him, in my mind, allows for time, right? There's going to be 2 years already between when he passed and the second movie, and then you figure it's another 3 years after that. You're going to get 5 years.
It's going to be tough, though. That's going to be a make it break it moment, man. That's going to be really tough.
Yeah, we'll see. Thankfully, we don't have to make these decisions. We can. No, we only have to talk.
I wish we were, though, because we'd be rich. Boom, boom! I get lightning coming out of my hands because I'm rich. That's the first thing I'm going to do when I'm rich is find a way to shoot lightning out of my hands.
What are you doing on this show then? You ain't getting any lightning being on this show.
Well, I got other plans, man. This ain't my whole life, dude.
I like it. This
ain't the whole life. I can't even get you to call me Lord of the Radio, so you're
on 3 weeks.
You're not in my plans. Yeah, you know what a struggle that was. It's been a year. It was an intense struggle right there, buddy. So
I wasn't woke to your concerns until.
Oh boy! See, there you go. That wasn't me. That was you right there. So,
some of the Disney Plus shows. So he actually sat down with Variety also. And he said that some of the Disney Plus shows could have more than one season, and some are being crafted with multiple seasons in mind. That's kind of the interesting part, right? Like you kind of, because it's a TV show, even though
look, they better, man, because Disney Plus, awesome that it is, needs content. It is doing really well. It does its content really well. It uses the little content that it has very, very, very significantly, substantially. I read a couple of articles about how well it uses Mandalorian. To attract attention to it, but they do need content. So, like in the context that some of these shows are only going to go one season, like WandaVision's only going to go one season,
Right.
They if they're going to start a revolving door, then they need to start cranking out some content now. Also, because we've gone this whole year without a lot of content, they need to start bombarding us with
Well,
stuff.
but theoretically speaking, the WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier should have already debuted.
Of course.
Obviously, the COVID situation that prevented that from happening.
But now there's no excuse for them not to have something coming up right after. Like
yeah, well,
because they got Falcon and Winter Soldier's coming up right after WandaVision. They need to have something right.
They have
after
Loki
that.
right after that. They have Loki
hopefully.
Right after that.
Hopefully, and then then there's also, because they're on. It's technically anthology kind of science. You better hope all those shows live up. Because the minute they slip up, man.
Yeah, they're talking She-Hulk and Moon Knight. I mean, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, they all have to come out with the same intensity and the same quality.
Yeah. So far, benefit of the doubt, right? They haven't not delivered on their stuff. Of course. The one thing I thought was interesting,
here to talk about the perils
about the one season versus the multi seasons. Being television, I actually just in my head, I kind of just assumed there would be multiple seasons. But now the more I'm thinking about it, you're right. There's no guarantee we're going to get more than one season of WandaVision or.
Isn't WandaVision supposed to lead right into Doctor Strange?
Right.
And so.
In a way, it's great because now we're kind of utilizing the streaming platform in a way that you couldn't do this. Not that you couldn't, but you just traditionally never would in a TV landscape.
It's what they wanted to do with the Netflix Marvel shows,
right?
But then there was a is it Jeff Johns or whatever? There was a battle between Jeff Loeb.
Yeah,
it was a battle between Jeff Loeb and Kevin Feige, and then eventually because there was a concerted effort in the beginning of those shows to tie them into the movies, and then they just kind of stepped further and further away from that. But now that Feige is like kind of the overseer of all that stuff, he could just he can make it a gigantic universe, and if he can consolidate it. Yeah, it'll probably be one of the most unprecedented things we've seen in entertainment. Yeah, we'll see. I'm rooting for him. I believe in him. I'm rooting for him, but we will see if it works.
Yeah. Ironically, you brought up the Netflix verse. That he was asked about that, and he said, "Never say never," which means yes.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yes, just not now.
No, it doesn't necessarily even mean yes. That's a placeholder. I don't fall for that whenever, no matter who is a genius. I never fall for that when that's just him That's just him not getting stuck with saying no,
right?
With being definitive about anything. But that doesn't necessarily mean yes. You
know what though? But I would say never say never to me is he has a plan for them. They will be appearing, because if he didn't think they were going to be appearing, he'd say at this time, I don't think we're going to. I would say at this time, I don't think it's going to, we're not really focused on them right now. They were great.
But that is what he's saying. He just said it in a more conciliatory way.
Maybe.
Because if something was working, he'd say, look, eventually we're going to bring everybody home.
What if he rolled back in his chair and let out a big laugh and said, never say never. Same words, different context. We don't know how he said this. Saying never say never. I say that's a yes. Talked about Secret Invasion also. And he said, we're interested in the political paranoia aspect of Secret Invasion and really showcasing Samuel L. Jackson and Ben Mendelsohn, two amazing actors that you want to have in any series. And we're lucky to have them for that. That's sort of the primary focus of that. And of course, we'll tie into other things in the scrolls in ways you haven't seen before. Well, because they've only been in one movie. But yes, anything could be anything. Wise words. But we wanted to do that as a series because it would allow us to do something different than what we've done before. So
that's going to be expensive. They're going to pay Sam Jackson to do TV.
Yeah.
He's going to make them pay for it.
Yeah.
He's going to make them pay for it.
And then finally, he did confirm, which I think we've all kind of confirmed, that the third Deadpool movie will be set in the MCU. It will have an R rating. Feige says Ryan Reynolds is too busy to plan for it anytime before 2022. But the script writers behind Bob's Burgers are writing the script under Reynolds' watchful eye. That's Wendy Molyneux and Lizzie Molyneux-Logelin. That should be... You know what? I'm not even going to think about it. I don't even want to think about that right now. I'm actually really excited about all the TV stuff. I'm curious what they end up doing with that. I'm curious how they roll in Fantastic Four and X-Men, but that one I'm content to kind of just sit here and on today's date, and just kind of say, okay. Because he didn't really say anything there. You know what I mean? He didn't say anything new there. That's what I'm
saying. He doesn't. Never mind.
Finally, shifting gears to this, Sony delays Jared Leto's Morbius to October 2021, and James Bond's film No Time to Die set to be delayed again.
Kidding.
Pushed back multiple times. So
it's our over-under. There's a giant health crisis going on, and people are
over-under. Proved pretty good. I think our record here was pretty darn good. When we come back, we're going to interview Mark Kaufmann. He is the writer-creator of Making Markum, live for free on RogueMatter.com right now. See you. Cape. No, Cape is always crazy. Cape is always crazy. Look, there are clowns walking the streets right now.
Right now.
There is no one dressed in a cape. Rogue Wave Podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. Streaming every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Facebook.com/Rogue Wave Podcast, and available immediately following the live stream wherever major podcasts can be found. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave Podcast. We are super excited to have our next guest, Mr. Mark Kaufmann, creator of Making Markum, now available on RogueMatter.com. Mark, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
We are doing, we're lively today. We're good. You hold the honor of being the first. Well, not really. We had somebody else on last year. Second.
See what I mean about you and your arguments? You always nullify your own. Just get on with it.
You're one of the first Rogue spotlights that we get to do, where we actually feature. Because last year we were kind of tiptoeing around the website because it wasn't actually launched yet. So we're kind of we weren't quite sure. But no, we are officially able to talk about all the cool stuff. So you are one of the first creators from Rogue Matter to come on and talk about the project. Give everyone the 30-second pitch of Making Markum.
So Making Markum is the introductory piece to this character who's known only as Markum. Like any interesting character, he goes by only one name, and it's really exploring, a character who ends up being among the best at what he does in future state, and what he happens to do is kill people. It sort of explores how he came to that line of work, and it also, it both alludes to his backstory, specifically his childhood, and he's a bit of a, I guess maybe to some degree we're all victims of one kind or another, but yeah. It alludes to, what caused the brokenness that he carries. That's a heavy weight on him, and also it sets up a lot of what's to come. The character Markum has a long story arc, and we're very excited about the next story that's Markum centered. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, the origination of this character was centered more around his future state, but as far as introducing this audience, the thinking was it would be more interesting to do a little bit of a backstory leading into.
Well, actually, I found that I found that to be interesting though, because I liked that I had gotten to read the first issue a few days before it dropped today, and it had, it's really actually talking about the main character without meeting the main character until the very end, and it's told through Doc's character, who is obviously kind of the manager for lack of a better term, and because you're reading a sequence where this character you think is the main character and is going to find some way out of the predicament that he's in, and then halfway through you kind of realize you're like, oh no, he's in a bad situation, and he's not the guy, he's not the Punisher, the John Wick character that's going to be able to get out of this in that fashion.
Well, right. Well, it's a bit of a it's a little bit along the lines of, Usual Suspects, where the whole time you're talking about this guy. And I mean, in this case, there's not sort of that sleight of hand where you find out that the narrator is actually the character that's been discussed the whole time. But
right.
I mean, it's sort of similar. Yeah. That, Markum is a bit of a mystery. I mean, it's kind of a hard to pierce veil, and I mean that's intentional, because I think he's a complex character, and so and I think that's what makes it interesting, right? Is we're trying to explore. It's one thing to sort of just have this cartoonish, this is the assassin, and
right.
There's so many stories where you have that type of character, and they're really one-dimensional, and it seems more interesting to what is going on inside of this person. It's like, instead of just making them sort of this there's got to be
this unstoppable killing machine.
A cost, or there has to be some sort of motivation for what propelled them into this kind of state of being. So, and like, it's interesting because he is picking up things as he moves along that he cares about. I mean, part of his brokenness was that he was a loner, and I remember hearing an interview a long time ago where somebody was talking about, the reason James Bond is kind of a crummy character is because he doesn't care about anything. So, it's like if you were actually that type of secret agent, but you had a family, you had a wife, it's like, if you messed up, and they've done that a little bit in some of the more recent films where there's a cost to him, and it makes it more interesting. But in like the older films, which I loved as a kid, so I'm certainly not dissing either the character or the films, because I still
hot take
when I happen to be flipping past TNT and they're showing Diamonds Are Forever, I will stop and watch the full film. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, it's when you have a character that has that starts to pick up those things he cares about, and so there's a risk, not just to himself but to others in his life. It sort of raises the stakes and makes it a bit more interesting, and that's where, as I said, this is setting up a little bit. It's like there's things that will pay back in. It's like the lightning's going to strike the clock tower at 12 o'clock. Like there's a bunch of that stuff that will become much more important as far as some of the future. I
was going to say the natural, what you would gravitate or natural comparison would be like a John Wick or a Punisher, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
But it's different than that, right? I mean, John Wick, you're almost. And even the Punisher to an extent, right? When Punisher is done well, it's a lot of wish fulfillment, right? It's a lot of just like gratifying, like these are bad guys. Read this and watch this, so the bad guys get their comeuppance. This is a little more nuanced than that.
Yeah, that's right. Which incidentally, the Punisher was my favorite character as a kid because so many of these other superheroes, let's say, although, the Punisher was a cooler superhero because he was more like Batman. He was just some dude, right? That can do this stuff because he's, but
he's determined.
he's determined. I mean, he was like a special ops or something. I mean, he's got, training, but I'm just saying he can't just, like, Superman is like, I mean, what are you going to do, right? The guy's Superman. I mean, if you were like a bad guy, you'd be like, I don't know, what's the point?
You throw a gun at him. That's what you do.
Yeah. That's right. And then he bends it into a pretzel.
Right in front of you, just to make you look even worse than you looked 5 minutes earlier.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You just feel like, yeah, you've got me. That's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I loved the Punisher as a kid because he would actually follow through, right? I mean, Superman, Batman, they'd put these guys in Arkham Asylum, and then they'd always break out. And you're like, hey, at some point, man, you got a responsibility here, because how lax the security is at that particular, penitentiary. I mean, it's like, I don't know who's running the shop.
Crap, Bob's on security tonight.
Yeah, it's like,
I'll block off 11 o'clock to go catch the Joker again.
At some point, it's on you.
You can't fire him, like you just can't. Like, it's tough.
That's right. Where's the issue where Batman is like, or Bruce Wayne's like, I want to see the warden in my office 8 o'clock because this is getting ridiculous. Like, really, again, the Joker and Two-Face. I mean,
you're like, you're maxing your PTO days, security guards. Like, you can't just,
You could do an entire story on the revolving door of wardens
Arkham
for Arkham Asylum.
Has anybody ever done that? That would be a great story. Like Arkham, it could be like a parody of how incompetent the guards are. Like,
it'd be the most boring court case on the planet. But
no, that would be a great series. I would get that in a second, man. I mean,
In your past life, you were production coordinator for studios like Warner Brothers and Paramount. Talk to us about being on Hollywood sets. And just working in this world.
Well, interestingly, 6 Degrees. And this is dating me a bit, but I worked on. I remember Constantine, and so. The John Wick connection there with Keanu Reeves, but it was a really fun experience. I mean, to sort of be involved in that, and like, I guess on that particular show, I remember walking around the within one of the sound stages. They built the Hell set, which was pretty interesting because when you see those scenes in the movie, the landscape and everything, which I'm actually kind of amazed because, they did green screen a good portion of it, but they actually built physically a fair amount of that set, which was pretty cool to see the details, which, that's people's craft. They spend a tremendous amount of time, making sure those little pieces have every nuance and detail, and then it's like 5 seconds of screen time. But I mean, the interesting anecdote about that is I remember Keanu Reeves' name is not Keanu Reeves, at least that's not his legal name, that's on his driver's license. So he kept getting stopped at the gate trying to get on to the studio lot to film, and it was because the guards were being super zealous and were like, whatever I should probably remember, but whatever his given name, or at least the name on his driver's license, it didn't match with the pass. So they're like, you're gonna have to go pull over, we're gonna have to clear this up. And I mean, to his credit, he's not like this megastar a-hole that just read him the riot act. He was just like, okay, that's cool. And then finally one of them was like, hey, you're Keanu Reeves. It's like, I mean, his agent did call the studio and pretty much read them the riot act.
It's his agent's job to be the
a-hole. He's the star on the movie. You're not going to let him on. What's wrong with you? You're paying this guy millions of dollars. And I mean, he is actually at least in my interactions with him, it's a bit hard, but in my interactions, he's actually a very nice person who's really interesting to speak with. So in any event, that is,
that seems to fit the bill for him, like from what everyone, what you read about him and just in general, seems very, very humble. So John Wick was like a resurgence for him too, and it's
Yeah,
good
for
when
sure.
good things happen to good people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they've got the new Matrix coming out, which should be interesting. I loved. I think I'm just channeling every other person in the universe, but I loved the first Matrix, obviously, and then the second
Sure.
two was kind of like, I don't know, man. But good for them for rebooting it because it was such a revolutionary series.
I'm glad they're rebooting it with him, instead of trying to say that that those stories never existed, or they're it'd be interesting to see how they work all that stuff in.
Yeah, I absolutely. Instead of just to your point, just that's one of the things that's a bit hard because, with the superhero movies, that's sort of the trend, and a lot of people are like, this is crap, and it's like, hey, that's how the comics work, right? You've got at any given time, 7 different Batman series going on, which contradict. I mean, they're not intended to be one,
umbrella,
complete story. They're all going in different directions. You know? I mean, like Mary Jane Loves Peter Parker is really different than a lot of the other. Is that what it is? I don't know. I remember there was like a romance one about Spider-Man, but I mean, it's very different than some of the other series they've done. So anyway, it's a bit hard because I do respect Marvel being the ones that kind of because at the time when I was at Warner Brothers, they treated the folks at DC like very dismissively, right? It was kind of like, okay, we don't, whatever. That's your little comic thing. Like, we're going to do what we're going to do. And I mean, what I respect, and I think the reason Marvel was, so much more successful is they embraced the storytelling of the comics and really involved those guys in how they executed those movies. And I think that's why they found such success. There's a reason why those characters became popular in the comic form initially, and it's because of how they handled
that's something that studios, especially Warner Brothers, it still feels like that, right? And it still feels like in a certain way you have directors that they might like the characters, but they didn't grow up loving them, and that sometimes can irritate a section of fandom. When it's visible on screen. Star Wars is kind of the new Star Wars is almost like that. Even though J.J. Abrams claims that he was a big Star Wars guy and he loved them, maybe he loved them too much because it didn't seem to translate to screen the same way. Or Rian Johnson's Jedi.
I think that was a bit of a no-win situation, though, right? Because, I mean, in my opinion, the best of the new Star Wars movies post, the George Lucas trilogy, like the second George Lucas iteration, so the newer one since that, not that I liked those, I'm just saying, was Rogue One. And I think it's because they were new characters that the directors and the writers weren't bound to sort of these characters that had so much weight to them based on both fans' expectations, but also past and future stories. With Rogue One, I mean, they fit it in the Star Wars universe by this is how the rebels got the plans for the Death Star, but they were completely original characters that they could just build story arcs and that all felt so organic, and as opposed to trying to shoehorn in something. So I'm a little bit sympathetic because I know you're not going to make, there was no way they could possibly have made everybody happy in the way they would have executed those.
Unless you're Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, and then you make everyone happy.
Yeah, but again, though, that's because, they're not dealing with sort of the main characters, right?
Yeah.
They're dealing with.
They also have the luxury of coming in second. So they're kind of like cleaning up a disaster as opposed to as opposed to making the mess themselves.
That's right.
You know what? To your point, Mark, and I agree with you, but I also sit there and say they did make the decision to focus on those old characters, and I contend with Hassan all the time. I'm like, The Force Awakens actually is a great movie until Han Solo appears. It's actually like it's interesting because you have, this new character Rey. You have Finn, and he's a stormtrooper that has second thoughts
Yeah.
about being a stormtrooper. I'm like, wow, that's
Yeah.
really interesting. And then as soon as Han Solo
Yeah.
comes on screen, you're now telling a story that's 30 years old. And
Yeah.
at that point, it goes, the whole trilogy goes off the rails at that
But
point.
I feel like if they had not included the original characters, there would have been a huge backlash about that.
Sure.
People have been like, how can you not have Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill and Harrison? How can you not involve them?
Yeah. To your point, they did it in Rogue One, though. They did bring you Vader. They just did it. They just gave you enough. They just gave you enough. But,
well, I was disappointed because I thought they should have, from back, a decade ago, I always was hoping that they would, if they were going to do future story involving the original characters, I was hoping that they'd base them on the Timothy Zahn series because, I think Thrawn and, Mara Jade, there was some really cool, interesting characters. And I just thought those books were really well done. So I'm a little, I'm like,
I don't think you're alone in that. No. This gentleman to my left is
whichever way I am on the spectrum right there.
You're centered below, so you're like in the power position.
Yes.
Yeah.
Real quick, favorite as a kid? You were a Marvel guy or a DC guy?
Well, as I said, I was more of, I think, a DC. I'm a little conflicted because I was like Punisher was my my go-to character just because I liked the fact that and Batman too for a similar reason that they're just regular dudes. Okay, in the case of Batman, he's a dude that happens to be a billionaire, so he can, he has a lot more resources to put towards, getting stuff than the Punisher. But it's still, I think it's particularly as I got older, I was more interested in that. But, when I was a kid, I liked a lot of the Marvel. Particularly I was an X-Men guy, I think, again, I like, I don't know, what did you guys think of that movie Logan? Because I liked the sort of
Logan
Western,
was great.
the Western feel to it. It was much like Mandalorian. It was like the Mandalorian is basically a space Western, right? Logan was very much like a Western. Those guys confront him with, and he's like, they click the shotgun and he's like, that's a sound that, I've heard too often. And it's like, oh man, that's totally a line out of like those classic Western movies, which I don't know, I thought that was cool. But anyway, so as much as I would say if I was a DC guy, I have an appreciation for a lot of the Marvel characters. Particularly I was a big X-Men kid, I remember.
Well, that's awesome. Check out Making Markum. It's on roguematter.com right now. You can read it for free. There's really no strings attached. That's kind of the awesome thing about Rogue Matter. We're giving content away, great content away. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. And
thanks, guys.
We hope to have you on again soon.
I'd love it. Yeah. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
When we come back, we'll put a bow on this episode. Want to thank our guest, Mark Kaufmann. Again, go check out Making Markum #1. It's on Rogue Matter. I believe the next issue comes out a week or 2 weeks later, but every Wednesday, new content on roguematter.com, totally free. Go check it out. Go read it digitally for free. You can't beat that, right? Right? Hassan, no, no.
You can't be free.
No.
Free's my favorite dollar amount, as a matter of fact. Unless I'm giving stuff away for free, then it's not so great.
There you go. Next week, we are going to dive into WandaVision. We'll give you our Rogue reaction. We get 2 episodes, too, which is pretty exciting.
We'll see if WandaVision falls into the category of great pilots.
And will it beat out Ozark? I don't know, man. That was bananas. Thank you, guys.
Ozark sucked because you didn't finish watching the show.
We will see you all next week.
Rogue Wave.